Inside of 764, it really was a culture of kids exploiting other kids in the network, as Bradley was still a minor himself at this time. He groomed countless members and created original content. He claimed to have collected several terabytes of CP, and one time he posted a video that a user said showed a sex act involving a baby.
And this is the thing that disgusting pred that we got beat up rolled on his chest, bro. As you guys know, when we did the boxing match against C-Bot, he tattooed 764 on his chest, right? I had no idea what that was. I've never heard of their organization before, but a lot of people told me that this is like one of the worst cults. They've done a lot of horrible things to children. Apparently, a lot of them got arrested. And you know what? If I'm gonna be a predator catcher, I need to know about organizations like this. So we're gonna react to this video today by Craden764, the internet's most disturbing cult. And viewer discretion is advised.
I've researched a lot of dark topics for this channel, but the stuff towards the end of this video is disturbing to the point where it was difficult for me to deal with. So please consider this a warning. Today, we are covering the internet cult 764, which is known to do things so horrific that they are classified as a terrorist organization by the US government. Right now, every single FBI field office is hunting for the cult leaders, and there are more than 250 ongoing FBI investigations. This is truly an unending rabbit hole, and it reveals what may be the most depraved and evil organization ever born from the internet. This is the emerging story of Cult 764. In order to better understand what has happened in the past couple years, we first need to trace the origins of the 764 network and talk about the founder who put all of this into motion in the first place. Everything started when Bradley Cadenhead, a 15-year-old from Texas, became involved with a Discord server named Cult. This server is important because it inspired Bradley to create 764 a few months later, and it also introduced him to certain strategies on how to exploit other children. He learned much of this knowledge from Rohan, who was the founder of the Cult server and also a master manipulator.
Chat, man, we only focus about predators being older people and stuff, but man, kids can be predators too, man. Kids can harm other kids. So just as much as you gotta look out for adults, you gotta also look out for other kids, man. You gotta make sure who are your kids hanging around? What are these people about? How are they being raised, bro? Because there's some child monsters out here, bro. Like what? Wasn't there that 16-year-old kid who just like violated he essayed his stepsister and then murdered her? 16. Bro, there's monsters out here, y'all. All ages.
He would recruit minors who he considered to be vulnerable on Instagram and Roblox, and then he would pretend to be in a romantic relationship with them in order to obtain nude photos, addresses, and other personal information. As soon as he obtained that first piece of leverage, he knew that he had complete control and literally began referring to his victims using the word slaves from that point onward. He'd blackmail them into live streaming degrading acts such as harming themselves and creating CP, but the true nature of this is not covered until the final chapters of this video. The relevant thing to know right now is that Rohan seemed to view grooming as a form of entertainment, and he derived great pleasure from watching them suffer. As he explained it, quote, "My ultimate goal is to create an endless supply of masochistic people to satisfy my sadism, and my cult is existing for that very reason." In the same message, he boasted about how everything he did was legal, and also explained that he didn't care about blackmail being unethical. He said, "We lack morals and ethics as we think they are not necessary." According to his nihilistic ideology in the cult server, ethics were seen as a weakness that needed to be eliminated from everybody. It seemed the many other members of the server agreed, including Bradley, whose mental state was now deteriorating rapidly.
He looks like a school shooter, bro. Like, I don't know how to explain it. He looks eerie.
Bradley had become absolutely consumed by the cult server, and during the pandemic in 2020 and early 2021, he literally never left his house, where, quote, his room, the bathroom, and the online chat room was his entire existence. He became fully immersed, slowly transforming from a kid who never missed church to an abuser who made blood oaths to Satan. Bradley was already a troubled teen prior to his engagement in any of this.
And this is the thing that disgusting pred that we got beat up rolled on his chest, bro.
As he was relentlessly bullied as a child, and he even threatened to become a school shooter. His parents got divorced, and it is suspected that his mother abused him, although this is unconfirmed. In middle school, his teacher overheard him repeatedly talking about bombs and weapons, and he was seen repeatedly watching extreme gore videos using the school computers. This escalated to the point where he was actually charged with making terroristic threats, and he was put on juvenile detention for a period of 1 year. All of that backstory is to say, when Bradley eventually joined the cult server, he was no stranger to the graphic violence and the dehumanizing content that he found there. The thing that was new to him, though, was the extreme level of manipulation and blackmail. And that is the exact moment when he decided to start 764. In early 2021, Bradley, quote, stopped caring about anything, and he reached a breaking point. He had completely withdrawn from society by this time, and his only human interactions were these toxic echo chamber chat rooms with other depressed and nihilistic teenagers. He hadn't been attending school in person for a while now, but January 2021 is when he officially dropped out of high school. Within 1 month, he had started the 764 Discord. The following events were all part of a carefully arranged plan by Bradley. He brought along all of his philosophies and the stuff he learned in the cult server, but this time, he was the leader who had all of the control. Going by the username Felix, he started setting up the server and adding a few of his friends, and then, just a short while later, 764 was officially operational. The name was based on his zip code, as these were the first 3 numbers in his hometown of Stephenville, Texas. The logo featured this number, along with some other symbols related to Satanism. It didn't look like much at the time, but this server was about to become one of the fastest growing online threats in the world, and it was all going perfectly according to Bradley's plan. If you're struggling with any of these things, please stop watching this video now and use the resources that are on screen and in the description.
No, genuinely, like, y'all, I'm gonna be real, man. Like, sometimes, like, I tell my fiance, like, the stuff, like, these guys that I be catching do, and the stuff I've seen on their phones and stuff like that, and it makes her just break down crying, man. Like, my girl was so, like, innocent to the fact that she didn't even know that anybody would even do something like that to a child. Like, she couldn't even, like, fathom that. So, man, like, genuinely, bro, man, you know, I understand, you know, you guys support me, love me, want to see it through, but if this is gonna affect y'all, please click off.
Please note that sensitive topics have been redacted in order to comply with all of these YouTube guidelines, policies, and also these best practices. I say with no exaggeration that this cult is one of the greatest dangers to kids today, and my hope is that learning about it can have a preventative effect. Parents in particular need to hear about this stuff so it can be avoided at all costs.
That's why my kids aren't gonna get on the internet until way later.
The following chapters demonstrate what it might be like to join 764, and the chapters are ordered chronologically, based on what a victim might experience, starting with their recruitment, then moving to radicalization, and finally ending by covering some of the abuse and violence that typically follows. Coincidentally, by structuring the video in this way, each chapter also tends to get more and more disturbing as the video goes on. Level 1. Recruitment. You can't really be a cult leader if you don't have any cult followers. Bradley's primary focus therefore became growing his server, with the end goal of grooming and exploiting as many of his followers as possible. He started spreading edgy advertisements like this one, which included multiple embarrassing spelling errors and the catchphrase, "Cause chaos with us, join today." Without any context, that almost makes it sound like he was the leader of some hidden dark web organization. But no, it was just a Discord server in plain sight. Once we get to talking about all of the events that took place in this server, you will realize just how insane it is that this was happening on a mainstream social media platform. In fact, this was actually part of Bradley's recruitment strategy though, as
You know the crazy thing about it though is Roblox caught a lot of flack for, you know, all the schlep stuff deservedly, right? But we really need to be switching our attention to Discord, man. Like, I was just thinking the whole time, bro, like, Discord got off so unscathed throughout all of that. That is where the main, like, I would say Discord is actually a bigger problem than Roblox, me personally.
By using Roblox and Discord, he was able to target kids who were just gaming, and he didn't raise any suspicion. This was the ideal environment where he could befriend or love bomb them using fake identities and lure them into 764. Bradley and his group would also heavily recruit from forums related to topics like depression and bipolar disorder, as they found that these people were easier targets. Any post tagged with eating disorders also became a prime target as well, so anyone who posted something related to this was likely to be directly contacted by Bradley or a 764 member. Something that is also pretty concerning and worth mentioning is that Bradley's recruitment strategy was invisible to parents. Even if a parent looked at their kid's phone or screen time data, all they would find is regular apps and regular games. After all, there is nothing inherently bad about using mainstream social media and a popular game like Roblox, which is literally marketed to children. 764 both knew this and took advantage of this, and it ended up being the key to their growth. Level 2, Radicalization. After several months of expansion, the server was now attempting to radicalize thousands of people at once, and this actually became a problem for Bradley. These new members were starting out by seeing the most tame things that 764 had to offer, but even those things were still pretty intense. For example, they would see graphic violence, CP, and pretty awful conversations going on in every single channel. For instance, they would probably witness chats between the sadistic neo-Nazi members who would talk about getting pleasure from watching people suffer and hating other people based on ethnicity. Bradley did his best to radicalize the new members and onboard as many of them as possible, but this was where the problem arose. So many new people had joined the server recently that some of them weren't fully on board with the disturbing content. When they saw the CP, they reported the Felix account to law enforcement and to Discord's safety team. Bradley had also been posting CP and gore in another server called No Feds Paradise, and he was taunting other users who called him out for his behavior. So, as you might expect, his Felix account was quickly banned. Law enforcement didn't seem to consider him a significant threat though, and they decided to do nothing at this time.
Ridiculous, bro. Like freaking... My server got raided the other day, and they started just spamming CSAM stuff in there, man. Like, I'm probably just gonna nuke my server again. I'm gonna be honest, man. Like, I like Discord. I think it's cool to meet up with the community and stuff, but it just brings so much more like headaches than it does good, genuinely.
I've already been reported to the FBI 15 times, and they haven't done anything, he said to another user. Have you seen the stuff I've been doing for almost a year now? He really thought that he could get away with it forever. At this time, Discord was probably thinking that they were slowing him down by issuing a ban, but it turned out for Bradley, this was actually just a minor inconvenience. He opened another Discord account using a VPN and a fresh email, and he simply continued doing the same things he was already doing. In fact, he was banned hundreds of times, and by mid-2021, he was getting banned every single day on average. Reportedly, it only took him a few seconds to make these new accounts and resume his activities though, so he essentially made himself immune to the effects of being banned. To take things a step further, Bradley also formed groups on WhatsApp, Roblox, and Minecraft, and also created additional Discord servers to ensure that 764 would always survive, even if one platform caught on to them. There were also several other servers out there that had similar purposes, with names like Harm Nation, Hate, Leak Society, and the Order of Nine Angles. Collectively, all of these associated communities are called the COM for short, and they were all growing rapidly. Level 3, Leverage. After getting enough people to join the 764 server, and after exposing them to the first level of radicalization, the next step in the pipeline was to gain leverage on as many new members as possible. Bradley, along with senior members of his organization, reached out and started fake friendships and even relationships with new members, similar to what happened in the cult server. The person in the online chat introduced himself as Brad. Using flattery and guile, he persuaded the 14-year-old girl to send a nude photo. It instantly became leverage.
I was scared to death. He would say, if you don't do this, then you don't love me.
With the leverage now obtained, 764 would begin the blackmail. Extort her, boys. Do you see her face on there, on the video? Because I'll send it to the school. Good. Make her suffer. Under the threat of releasing their compromising photos, 764 would eventually extort their members into doing unspeakable things.
Oh my God.
Before they could extort these most extreme actions, though, they first had to start off with the simple stuff that they considered to be tame. For example, they would coerce victims into drinking from a toilet bowl, and one girl was forced to eat her father's ashes on video chat.
Oh my, bro, we're evil, man. As a society, bro. I've never heard of something like that before, man. Oh my gosh.
The following screen recording shows another victim, and in this case, she was forced to cut her hair on a Discord call. 764 also considered this to be an entry-level form of blackmail. In the clip, it seems that they had previously obtained new photos of her, and they were threatening to send them if she didn't comply with their demands.
Okay, get your hair. It's chopping time.
It appears that the abusers in the watch party are really entertained by this, highlighting the typical sadistic tendencies of 764 abusers.
You have 30 seconds.
We told you what you need to do. Oh no, should we press send? Start cutting. Chop, 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 chop.
Keep going.
She then had to give an apology to each of her abusers, even though she presumably had nothing to apologize for.
Okay, I want you to take the hair that you cut off, right? I want you to put it in your mouth. I want you to say, I'm sorry, Moist. I'm sorry, O'Hare. I'm sorry, Duck.
Footage like this can be hard to watch, but apparently this kind of stuff was just the start of what would happen to the victims in this Discord server. At the end of that video clip, the girl asked, "Are we good?" And then the recording ended with a response of, "No. I mean, this is just step one." Situations like this happened daily in the 764 Discord, and one perpetrator was even seen boasting about how he had obtained a lengthy CP video, saying it was, quote, the 14th girl this month. Now, if you just multiply that by the hundreds of members who are in the server, you can take a guess at how many people were being manipulated. The number gets even higher when you remember those messages from earlier, showing how multiple predators would swarm a vulnerable victim and extort them simultaneously. The future levels demonstrate just how far that extortion could go.
And you know what else I blame, bro? Is like parents be knowing their kids are pieces of shit and they don't be doing nothing about it, bro, man. You know what? I think the best thing that happened was that kid that shot up that school, his dad getting sent to prison as well. I think that was just an amazing thing. Like, I was actually genuinely happy about that because, bro, people are tired of suffering from your lack of parenting. It's one thing if you did your best, you disciplined, all of that, and your kid turned out as a shithead. Okay, you know what? You can't always, like, can't. But some of these parents don't do nothing, bro. They're like, oh, well, he's gonna do what he's gonna. No!
Compromising photos probably were the most common form of leverage, but 764 would also find other ways to manipulate their victims. Some of them would hack into their phones or computers, trick them into downloading viruses, or use other illegal methods to gain control of their data. From there, they could gain access to sensitive information like their address and make direct threats on their families. It was common to get threats of someone showing up at your house, and many swattings were also called in. This advertisement in a 764 Splinter group shows a, quote, SWAT for hire service, with prices ranging from $10 to $30. Another strategy they used to get info was asking government agencies directly, using falsified emergency requests. Surprisingly, in some instances, these fakes were so convincing that 764 was actually granted sensitive info about their victims. From this point on, almost everything revolves around leverage. Once they had something on you, they weaponized it to gain even more leverage, up to the point where they had
Bro, if you're a part of this organization, you are the... Ooh, I was about to say something. Ooh, I was about to say something. Oh man, I almost got banned, bro.
Level 4. Animal cruelty. This was another early form of extortion that often happened before things escalated to be more extreme. Similar to the previous level, 764 would leverage compromising or vulnerable material that they had on a new member and threaten to release it unless they started hurting their pets.
Oh!
Senior members of the cult liked this practice as it provided plenty of videos for their lore books. These so-called lore books were basically just big digital folders of abuse content, and many senior members had the goal of making the most graphic and extreme lore book so that they could pass it around like a trophy and show others what they had done. Forcing someone else to hurt an animal was apparently considered a mild but valid entry into one of these books. One example was this video, where a 14-year-old held up her pet hamster in front of the camera while she was live streaming inside of the 764 server. Bradley yelled at her, "Bite the head off or I'll F up your life," as he continued to hide behind his username, Felix.
I just thank God that this is a mugshot. I hope this nigga gets, I hope he gets fucked up every day, bro. Oh my gosh! Bro. Put him in a, I hope, you know what? I would love for them to live stream what Jamal and Tyrone do to him. You know what? Why don't they add that to their lore book?
Dozens of other people were also in the voice call watching with great anticipation. "Stop crying," one of them said, as the girl was obviously sobbing and unsure about how to get out of this horrible situation. As the call went on, she was eventually forced into harming the animal in a number of ways, and a little while later, the family's pet was dead. In another case related to this topic, a user named HolyGirl222 was forced to kill her cat. In this image that leaked out of the server, we can see her holding up a fan sign for her abuser named Court. 764 is written in the corner of the page, and in her other hand, she is holding up the now deceased animal. She was later doxxed and also swatted. Another one of the more well-known videos from 764 is this one, where a girl killed her cat on camera while all of these other people are watching. There also appears to be a rabbit in the video, but it is pretty dark and hard to see. At the end, she is forced to write the server's name using its blood. In this image, we can see yet another cat being strangled, with a fan sign next to it saying, "Harm 764 made me do this." These incidents, although disturbing, were still only level 4 out of 13, and
how does it get? That's like you telling me we're about to go fight Thanos, but we're only on level 4. What's next? That's like you telling me Adolf Hitler or Osama bin Laden is on level 4, but we still got to go all the way to 13.
were considered relatively common within 764. For this reason, this girl's mother feared that the same might happen to her animals, and she had to lock all of the family pets away behind closed doors for their own protection. She even had to sleep with a kitchen knife under her pillow, just in case she had to defend herself from her own teenage daughter who was in 764. It may sound almost like an extreme precaution, but the group was actually known to escalate into pressuring kids to kill their parents, and potentially, they also leaned into an ideology called anti-natalism. This is the belief that it is morally wrong or unjustifiable to have children, and extremist groups like to use this to radicalize kids. They tell you that your parents only had you to satisfy their own selfish desires, and that you should hate your parents because they brought you into this world without your consent. A member would tend to experience more twisted and strange ideologies the deeper they got into 764. Level 5. Cut signs. Usually following some sort of pressure for animal abuse, the next level would be harming oneself. Cutting was the standard, but more specifically, 764 became infamous for a certain type called cut signs. In order to symbolize their servitude and loyalty, members would be forced to carve the names of their abusers into their bodies. Others carved the numbers 764, literally branding themselves. Bradley later mentioned how several people had carved his initials, and it was seen as a quote, homage to Bradley. This would leave them with permanent damage and scars from the initials, and also sometimes they'd use symbols related to the cult. For example, she carved a swastika, and apparently after a while she had so many cuts that she couldn't even recognize a square inch of her body. As was the standard, the abusers inside of 764 watched her do all of this, mostly on live streams within the server, and Bradley went on to repeatedly boast about this type of thing. I make bitches eat their house pets and cut for 4 hours straight. I got proof too. You a freak of nature, another user replied. I'm the real deal. The following is a chat log example of what it looked like for Bradley as he extorted members into cut signing, using a leverage photo he had previously obtained. You don't want that photo posted everywhere, right? Of course I don't, but I don't want a cut sign for you either. Do you really think that you're given a choice? Okay, but like why me, bro? I didn't do anything. You're going to do something for me, cutting or not. Can't you find someone else, please? No. Evidence of cut signs were another staple in the lorebook collections of high-ranking members. Here we can see a folder of one guy who had amassed a collection of more than 8,000 images and videos of children, including infants and toddlers. This collection landed him in federal prison with a 7-year sentence, but
That's the bullshit. Bro, 8,000 videos? In only 7 years. Somebody has been exposed to that much material of stuff, and you genuinely think they can be rehabilitated and put back in our streets? What a joke.
it also established him as a legend in 764 history, highlighting just how much respect you would get if you had a big collection. Perpetrators like him literally considered cut signs to be proof of ownership over their victim.
They would say, like, if you cut my name into your body, then I own you.
764 had such complete control over the girl in this clip that she apparently couldn't be left alone for more than 10 minutes because she would be at risk of hurting herself. Fortunately, she eventually was able to move beyond this terrible time in her life and is now recovering many years later.
Yo,
Level 6,
Lunky, thank you.
Potential Escape. After suffering through the first few levels of the cult, some users would try to leave, but escaping 764 was exceptionally difficult. You couldn't just decide to leave the server one day because they would fight back and they would go ahead and deploy all the leverage they had built up against you. For example, one mother disconnected her daughter from the internet because she found out she was covered in cuts and she had heard her talking to 764 members while in the bathtub. It had escalated to the point where the mother said, "If I had not been at the bathroom door, I have no doubt I would have lost my daughter." After she cut off her teen's contact with 764 though, she discovered firsthand what happens to people who try to escape the network. CP images of her were instantly released. The principal at the girl's middle school was harassed several times, and phone calls mentioned how the girl had strangled cats and harmed herself. 764 also reported a false emergency event at her residence, which caused a SWAT team to raid their house. This is the type of stuff that any potential escapee would have to endure, and for many, this kept them trapped inside. They would receive messages like, "Alright, I guess I'ma have to send," alongside other threats to release their photos and sensitive information. In this case, it worked. "No, okay, sorry, I will. What do you want?" Yourself. Simple, right? You're like my dog now, on a leash. The bleak reality is that almost nobody left 764, and those who did suffered the consequences. Level 7, Satanism. This is the edgy branding layer that is always present in all of the levels, but it's also being ordered at level 7 because it has inspired violent crime. Satanism is one of the things that was carried forward from the cult server, and it would be introduced to new members as a defining ideology of 764. At times, though, it became much more than just an ideology, such as this case where the Brazilian police arrested a 764 group who was planning an attack on a Lady Gaga concert.
What?
This took place in Rio de Janeiro, and allegedly, one of the members of the splinter group was planning a, quote, satanic human sacrifice of a child or baby, which was to happen during the concert. They were found.
Oh, these niggas are evil. They're actually Satan, bro. Satan literally walks among us.
To be in possession of illegal firearms and also wanted to use explosives in their terror attack. One of the members of the group was also charged with live streaming a separate attack on a homeless man. According to the police, he started a live stream in the 764 server, recording the entire incident. He approached the man who appeared to be sleeping on the sidewalk, and then he hit him with 2 Molotov cocktails. Police seized the phones of all the members of this group, and allegedly also found a lot of CSAM, CP, and other illegal and disgusting content.
No, bro, it's not. It's just all CSAM. It's all CSAM. It's all CSAM.
Another tie to Satanism is that some members may have been required to make blood oaths in order to prove their loyalty. This is more tied to a similar group called the Order of Nine Angles though, so it's uncertain just how many blood oaths actually took place inside of 764 itself. It seems that a lot of the satanic stuff was also symbolic, because the group's presence on SoundCloud often featured satanic-related playlists and also apparently ISIS music. Surprisingly, the group did use SoundCloud for some of their activities, but obviously platforms like Discord and Telegram remained their primary focus. Level 8. CP and CSAM. Usually following some of the abuse mentioned in the earlier levels, this is when the extortion would really start to get extreme. 764 would try to get their members to record large amounts of CP. To be clear, this stuff would be a lot worse than the leverage photos that were mentioned earlier. Those photos were really just strategic and used for 764 to get their foot in the door, and then later on, they would try to force their victims to record even more extensive and violent content. This form of severe extortion became Bradley's specialty, and he was absolutely obsessed. He would frequently boast about it, saying things like, quote, "I'm known for being a pedophile," to which another user responded, "Felix, the CP god." He groomed countless members and created original content, but he also started amassing a huge storage of CP that he had encountered elsewhere in the comm. He claimed to have collected several terabytes of CP, and one time he posted a video that, a user said, showed a sex act involving a baby. Inside of 764, it really was a culture of kids exploiting other kids in the network, as Bradley was still a minor himself at this time. However, over time, this huge library of content inside of 764 also started to attract much older adults. In this video, one of these adults was in the middle of grooming this girl when her dad walked into the room.
Hey, can you hear us? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I'm 27 years old, by the way, and I want your daughter to do stuff for me.
Okay, that's fine. I'll report you to the police.
Oh, I'm sure you will, fatty. Can you leave the room, though? I'm busy talking with your daughter. I just saw her and she's like 16, I'm 27. Make her lift up her shirt.
I will be reporting you to the police.
Because her father intervened and stopped her from following orders, the girl realized that she was now in danger of being doxxed, and the 764 members began threatening her.
I don't want them, they're gonna dox me.
Do you want to die? Do you want to die tonight? Do you?
The call ended abruptly, and we do not know what happened afterward. Bradley was participating in this extortion alongside the adult who was speaking during most of the video.
Bro! Oh my gosh, bro. Well, you know what, chat, man? They're all gonna have their day, bro. There's no point in me getting mad, and it really does piss me off, right? It really does. It really does. But they're all gonna have their day, bro. You know, they're all gonna have their day.
Going by the username Moist Nigerian, he was well known in the extortion comm and was allegedly acting like a mentor to Bradley. In another photo, we can see some evidence of his other activities, with this fan sign reading, "Moist Nigerian has me and my 2-year-old sister captive. He's a sick man." 764 also attracted many other well-known predators. 24-year-old Kyle Spitz introduced himself, saying, quote, "Little information about how I started. I've always been a psychopath and always wanted to watch girls inflict pain upon themselves for me." My earliest sign I ever got was a single K back in 2016. Over the years, I've stopped, taken breaks, and come back on new aliases, but I have a total of over 2,600 plus victims. My goal is to reach 3,000 before I get feted. Kyle was also very well known because this video of him went viral on Twitter, getting a ridiculous 32.4 million views. The video shows his mom's boyfriend wielding a weapon, and then he actually shoots it and hits Kyle in the ear.
Oh, God. Bro, I wish he would have blown his fucking brains off.
Kyle ended up being totally okay, but the man proceeded to turn the weapon on himself, and he did not survive. The FBI later paid them a visit, found Kyle's CP collection, and he is now facing decades in prison. Nobody knows if he reached his goal of 3,000 victims before he was, quote, feted. This other man was one of the most active COM members when it came to crimes of this type. During one of his most infamous incidents, he groomed a victim from Instagram and then drove all the way from Texas to Virginia, where he set up camp in the woods behind her house. He convinced her to run away with him and said that they were in love and going to start a life together. He was 21 and she was 12. An Amber Alert was issued and they were eventually found after they had traveled to North Carolina. He was sentenced to 350 years in prison because of the things he did to her, especially because he recorded much of it on video.
Oh my God. Poor little girl.
Yet another 764 member
now we get this nigga. Oh my gosh, bro. Niggas are weird too, bro. C-Bot's oh, bro, niggas are weird too. Oh, bro, everybody's weird, bro. Everybody, bro.
Arrested later on, and this one is notable because his court documents detail some of the overall things that were going on inside of the server. Quote, Detective Basco located over 700 images of the worst child exploitation he had observed in his career. Nearly every image of child exploitation showed the child to be bound or restrained, and in many cases, an element of sadism was observed. These are just a few of the most infamous predators from—
I hope they're all getting just— You know the thing I hate, chat, is you give these niggas the lightest sentences possible, yet you give them all this protection in prison. Bro, who gives the— Bro, if they kill them, they kill them. Who cares?
764, because sadly, the list just goes on and on. They would force these kids to engage in every type of activity, even when some of them were allegedly only 5 or 6 years old. They had entire servers dedicated to this type of topic with thousands of videos, such as this one called CP Hangout. 764 actually became so hated that even white supremacist groups no longer wanted to interact with them. They set up a bot that would detect whenever a so-called known people joined, and then they would instantly kick them out. 764 was shocked by this because many of them literally were white supremacists, and their CP had just become so notorious that even the supremacists needed to create some distance. Level 9, Ranking Up. This is the level where some victims actually switch sides and start abusing others, with the goal of climbing the social ladder of the cult. This is one of the most twisted aspects of the entire operation, because the system incentivizes victims to start finding victims of their own. You could gain significant status within the system if you successfully carried out violence or exploitation, and you would gain an extra bunch of points if your video went viral. As the FBI said, it's sort of a badge of honor within some of these groups to actually do the most harm to victims. Even if you were being actively extorted though, you could still do something very extreme yourself and potentially take the target off your back and become respected within 764. This created a very chaotic culture inside of 764 because basically at all times, most members were trying to extort each other and force them to do insane things on camera. Recording your own violence towards people in real life was also considered to be worthy of respect though, so it wasn't just extorting others. As mentioned earlier, many members would create lorebooks of their victims, and they would also put their own personal violence in this lorebook and share it with others to increase their rank. The more extreme your lorebook was, the more praise you would receive. With this goal in mind of converting new innocent members into perpetrators, 764 created and then widely circulated a handbook that contained tutorials. It was called the Extortion Handbook, a comprehensive guide for perpetrators, and it was so extensive that it apparently took 3 hours and 48 minutes to read. It talks about strategies for abusing victims ages 13 to 18, but then it also, quote, recommends targeting children under 13 for their vulnerability and lack of digital literacy. With that said, everything here gives the appearance that there was a strong culture of teaching the next generation of abusers within the cult. There were also exchanges like this one saying, I don't know how to extort, with the response being, don't worry, I'll teach you. This was ultimately how 764 was able to scale up so fast. Friendly fire was constantly happening, and every new victim would also become a potential predator as time went on. Level 10. Profit. Disturbingly, it appears that many of the activities within 764 were motivated both by a desire to exploit and also a desire for profit. The network allegedly became somewhat of a hub for buying and selling CP, and members would use this marketplace to profit from their exploits. At one point, Bradley claimed that he had made $10,000 the previous day selling CP, and in another conversation, he claimed that he had made as much as $25,000 per day. These claims do appear to be exaggerated, but it is still clear that Bradley was profiting at least some amount from his operations in the server. In this screenshot, we can actually see an unrelated example of a purchase attempt. The user offers to sell 10 pictures and 10 videos of his 15-year-old sister for a total of $50. The buyer responds, sorry bro, I said underage. I need them to be like 4 to 7 years old. He then offers to Cash App $15 right now if the seller has any videos of 4 to 7-year-olds, and then the seller confirms that he does. Another concerning example of profiting is when a 764 member notoriously known as Yuki created a sort of violence for hire service using the name Brick Squad. The following is a clip of him explaining how it works.
Brick Squad is the front lines, you know, you can order from their house, get the house like up, even get the person who's in the house robbed, just a bunch of other things.
During an interview, he also said, quote, people pay around $1,000 for a bricking. Normally, the starting price to shoot up a house is $5,000. If you want someone actually killed or kidnapped, that would go for way more. Overall, it is clear that 764 explicitly marketed their group and their activities as a way to make profit. In the aforementioned handbook, one of the sections is literally called Earn Money. It says, easily earn money by selling explicit content you receive from subscription or from your victim. In accordance with all of this, it seems that the Discord server and the WhatsApp groups basically became black markets to fuel their own operations, and it remains unclear just how big the economy became over the years. Law enforcement. Before continuing on to the final levels of the cult, it's worth noting what the authorities were doing about all of this obviously illegal activity. As 764 became more and more mainstream in mid-2021, it finally started to draw serious attention. Discord had manually filed reports about 764, begging the authorities to take action, and in fact, they submitted 58 reports about Bradley Cadenhead alone. This is exactly why Bradley thought he was invincible, but finally, after years of being a sadistic terrorist, police traced him to his mother's 2-bedroom apartment and entered his room, which apparently reeked of body odor. He was arrested, and this—
Oh, look at this nigga, bro. Oh my gosh, bro. No neck. Oh, like a mole rat.
Mugshot was taken. Police seized all of his devices, including this laptop, where they found graphic violence, videos, and CP that included at least 20 images of prepubescent girls. Sometimes, terrorist groups disappear when their leader gets arrested, but 764 would not be one of those groups. As described in the upcoming levels, the cult continued to thrive and even grow after Bradley was out of the picture. Following Bradley's arrest, the cult carried out some of its worst activities yet, and this is where it got so bad that the FBI classified 764 as a Tier 1 terrorist organization. Tier 1 is the highest possible level of threat in the FBI, and with that in mind, they opened over 250 investigations spanning all 55 of their field offices. The director of the FBI also tweeted about 764, calling the cult deeply disturbing and reinforcing that those who come after America's children will face justice. The agency would go on to make several more statements to the same effect. During Bradley's trial, a prosecutor said, "Very rarely do we get a chance to look evil in the face. This may be one of those times." After seeing the contents of Bradley's laptop, the judge, quote, listed all of the Bible's 7 deadly sins by name and said there was evidence of them in this case. The judge then turned directly to Bradley and said, "There is something horribly wrong with you. Horribly." In 2023, Bradley was sentenced to 80 years in prison, but somehow, as of now, he is already eligible for parole on his active sentence. Since he is serving multiple consecutive sentences though, he will still need to be cleared for those other sentences if he is ever granted parole for his first sentence. Additionally, because his cult is still ongoing, Bradley remains a threat and is therefore very unlikely to be released anytime soon. Violent extremism. Gore and graphic violence were always considered to be defining elements of 764, but shocking real-life violence and literal terrorism escalated after Bradley's arrest. These attacks were often seen as yet another level within the cult, and the attacks were considered to be much more prestigious. Sometimes people would be forced into violence, such as this example where someone said, "I grabbed a British person into killing her neighbor." Other times, though, people would stream themselves committing actual murder because they wanted to gain more respect and status within the org. Quote, "stabbed someone." Another user replied with "cap," to which they said, "not cap, and I can prove it." This happened in Romania because a 17-year-old member named Tobbs764 was trying to gain status. He was a new generation member, meaning that he was most active after Bradley was arrested. Tobbs desperately wanted to join another server called MKY and prove himself worthy, so he came up with a violent plan and went live to stream it. He started by attacking an 82-year-old man, causing major injuries that left him hospitalized. Apparently, this wasn't enough to get him into MKY though, because just a few weeks later, he set out on the streets for another episode. This time, things got a lot worse. He attacked a 74-year-old woman who was just taking out her trash. In the video footage, he is seen approaching her, saying hi, and then knocking her to the ground. He proceeds to brutally murder her as everyone watched it on the live Discord call. Moments later, he is seen running away in a nearby field, having stolen her necklace from her body. He said the attack was racially motivated, as he thought she was either of Jewish or Roma descent. Later, it was revealed that she was actually neither. The assailant was arrested and charged with murder, attempted murder, and possession of CP. Apparently, they found a lot of material with violence in every
14 years. CP, C-Sam murdered a woman.
imaginable form: beheadings, bombings, and abuse of children. Tobbs was also allegedly known to take dogs from the pound and beat them to death. For these charges, he was sentenced to 14 years in prison. It seems that he had become involved in some sort of program for reintegrating minors into society, and this is why he
bro, you're
wasn't
a lost
given.
cause, bro. Kids can be lost causes too. What is this all? Let's give them. No, bro.
Been a longer sentence. To give a little more context on the MKY group that he was trying to join, they're known as the Maniac Murder Cult, and they are a violent neo-Nazi accelerationist group based in Russia and Ukraine. They supposedly represent the most violent of the 764 affiliated communities, as they've claimed responsibility for over 50 murders worldwide. The number is, of course, unverified, but the thing to know is that they are clearly one of the more extreme splinter groups within the comm. In recent years, there have been hundreds of school shootings in the United States, and it appears that some of them link back to 764. A 17-year-old in Tennessee opened fire inside of a cafeteria, killing one student and injuring another before taking his own life. He had attempted to livestream this attack on the platform Kick, but the stream cut out partway through. Investigations later uncovered evidence suggesting that he was involved in the comm and 764, as he made several references using memes and usernames. One of his social media profiles even made the claim that he was a direct victim of a 764 leader. On January 6th, 2021, the United States Capitol was attacked by a mob,
Yo, D Valentine, man, thank you for the 10 subs, bro. I really appreciate it.
And the ensuing riot became deadly and quite infamous. One of the most high-profile rioters, named Riley, was a member of the comm. "I stole stuff from Nancy Pelosi," she typed in all caps. "I stole her gavel hammer thing." During the riot, she led an army up the stairs as they stormed the Capitol and broke into Nancy Pelosi's office. In addition to the gavel, she also stole Pelosi's laptop, and according to her ex, she, quote, intended to send the computer device to a friend in Russia, who then planned to sell the device to SVR, Russia's foreign intelligence service. She was later sentenced to prison with a term of 3 years, but she was acquitted on the laptop theft charge, even though she admitted to doing it.
And she got pardoned by Trump. Ain't that a bitch? She got pardoned by Trump. Wow. Oh my gosh, man. Hey, man. Hey, hey, bro, we're making America great again, bro.
As documented thus far, the violence coming out of 764 would happen for a variety of reasons. Racially motivated stuff was a common theme though, and another incident occurred when a neo-Nazi member planned a mass casualty event in 2023. This member of the comm plotted to dress up as Santa Claus and then give poisoned candy to racial minorities and Jewish children in the streets of New York City. This individual was 21 and allegedly a leader of MKY, which I just told you about. This will not be shown, but he gave step-by-step instructions on exactly how to put the poison into the candies and explained how this was all supposed to happen on New Year's Eve. Luckily, this is one of the incidents where the FBI actually prevented the attack, as the MKY member unknowingly communicated these plans to an undercover agent who flagged the upcoming deadly event. The man pleaded not guilty, but if convicted, he faces up to 50 years.
Oh my God.
In that case, authorities did an excellent job of apprehending him before anything could happen, but that was sadly not the case in many other violent extremism cases. To give a final and chilling example, at least 8 attacks in Western Stockholm can be linked to the violence-approving internet movement 764. They reported that many of the victims were elderly and that at least 6 of the attacks were filmed and posted on Telegram channels linked to 764. It seems that multiple members may have been involved, including a 14-year-old boy who is suspected to have carried out several of the knife attacks himself. Because of his age, he cannot and will not be held criminally responsible under Swedish law, but the whole case—
Oh, bro, I would have hung him. Oh, man, he would have been hung.
Really just goes to demonstrate how 764 is able to manipulate kids into doing violence. Evidently, the 764 network itself has had plenty of violent incidents, but this chapter would not be complete without mentioning another adjacent group from the comm. They are called No Lives Matter, or NLM for short. This group has been partnered on and off over the years with 764, and they have many overlapping members and overlapping ideologies. As you can see here, they like to advertise their partnership with graffiti saying things like NLM 764, No Lives Matter. We strike anywhere, anytime. As you may infer from their name, they do not value any form of life whatsoever, and they often seek to end it. To give you an idea, you have to do something really violent just to join the group, as seen in this announcement message reading, NLM only accepts acts which harm the mundane, for example, beatings, arson, etc. Similarly, we can also see this other post from a comm group called Hive, encouraging prospective members to do brickings, stabbings, beatings, graffiti, arson, and extortion. Homeland Security recently made a post about NLM to provide a little bit more insight into their operations, and they mention two main pieces of NLM literature. These are the Terror Guide and the Manhunt Guide. Both of these allegedly provide detailed instructions on how to do said activities, including mass casualty terror attacks or specific manhunt-style operations. In addition to the things we've already mentioned, though, the whole NLM ideology is rooted in abolishing all societal norms, as they aim to, quote, spread terror to all who are mundane. Notably, though, they do not want to replace or change anything about society. They simply just want to destroy it and witness its downfall. The Department of Justice clarified this as well, saying the 764 network's accelerationist goals include social unrest and the downfall of the current world order, including the US government. Unfortunately, much like the chapter on CP, the violence chapter could go on for approximately 3 hours based on how many cases and splinter groups there are. There is a pattern that remains the same through almost all of these cases, though. A desperate young person records themselves doing an attack, either because they were forced to or because they thought they could impress their audience on the live stream. These cases that were presented here barely scratched the surface, but with that said, it's now time to move to the final level.
Oh, there's more? What could 13 possibly
Level 13.
be? Oh my God.
Many members of this network have an end goal of forcing their victims to commit suicide on live stream.
As you just heard, this is the ultimate goal of 764. New members slowly progress through the levels and do more and more extreme things until finally they're encouraged to end it all on a live stream. Watching one of these incidents happen was actually one of Bradley's personal goals from the very beginning, as he said he wanted to, quote, watch someone kill themselves in video chat. Luckily, most new members never make it to level 13, but sadly, there are some who did. Should I kill myself? Yes. Tonight? Yes. What should I do? 764 members provided complete guides in excruciating detail on exactly what to do. They encouraged it, explained it, and apparently loved watching it happen. The videos would be saved and added to a lore book. The experiences were traumatic. I watched a girl hang herself from her closet, Sophia says, adding that the girl survived. I saw somebody themselves right in the face. One of the cases that I personally consider to be the worst involves a 25-year-old man from Minnesota who was in the middle of a mental health struggle when he joined 764. His name was Samuel Hervey, and he found a home in this community. He met another user who went by the name of FMLK, and she was a 15-year-old from Eastern Europe. Recognizing Samuel's struggle and vulnerability, she realized that she could take advantage of him. She planned to convince him to take his own life because she wanted to gain status within 764. The two became very close, with FMLK consistently encouraging him to commit, using phrases like, "You can do this." A while later, Samuel actually came up with the plan on how he was going to do it, and he announced his upcoming death to the server 1 week before the incident. Quote, "Dude, I'm gonna kill myself, because it's the only way to love myself, I guess." As the time drew closer, he wrote, "Today is the second to last day of my life. I bought the gasoline today. Right now, I kind of feel like it was always meant to end like this." Reading those messages, everyone knew what he was going to do. The Discord members were looking forward to watching it all go down, and FMLK was probably excited about trying to rank up. On the day of the incident, Samuel made the announcement that he would be live streaming his death. He got on a bus and traveled to the base of a snow-covered mountain, and then hiked all the way to the top. Once there, he started the stream in the Discord, and at least 29 other members joined to witness it live. Among them, FMLK was there to encourage him and make sure that he followed through. Samuel talked to other members in the audience for a few minutes, but then he decided it was time. He propped up his phone to give a clear view and proceeded to light himself on fire. As he lay there dying for the next several minutes, the Discord audience reacted in about the most psychopathic way you could possibly imagine.
Hey, shout out to Discord people. Shout out to Xanax. Shout out to 764.
Shout out to everyone. Big shout out to Money and big shout out to FMLK. And we gotta say, you took yourself. Wow. 6323 is better than 764.
That's the worst death possible, man.
The 764 members sat there celebrating, laughing, and calling it, quote, so funny, until eventually he stopped moving. In their typical sadistic fashion, it appears as though 764 members were thoroughly enjoying this activity. FMLK was heard in the clip, giving herself a shout-out and ensuring that she would get credit for the incident. She later described how she celebrated Samuel's death as a big moment for her own advancement, saying, quote, I was getting my big break. It was a competition of who could do the worst thing, so obviously I felt very cool. 4 months later, FMLK would go on to claim that she had lured another suicidal girl to the server and similarly convinced her to stream her death. She also admitted to arson, saying that she set fire to a dry grass field that was nearby a rural village and recorded a video of the fire spreading to the nearby buildings. All of these things were archived, shared inside of lore books, and used to increase her standing in the comm. When told about the details of his passing, Samuel's mother was obviously very upset and also put some blame on the platform for not taking action. Samuel had posted his plans a full week in advance, so she said, quote, Discord should have been monitoring better. It's all very sad. As a further demonstration of Discord's behavior, FMLK wasn't even banned until 3 years after the incident, and as you all know, she probably just made a new account anyway. Surprisingly, I also could not find any evidence that she was ever charged for any of her actions. As seen here, FMLK agreed to be interviewed by the Post for an article, but only under the condition of anonymity. At the time of recording this video, a developing case on this level is centered around a 20-year-old man from Germany. He allegedly coerced a 13-year-old American boy into killing himself while on a livestream video. Because this case is so new, there is not a lot of detail about what happened, but there does seem to be a lot of evidence against the German man, who was apparently a high-ranking member of 764. When he was arrested, the police found more than 120 hours of graphic images and video material. When viewing this evidence, the investigators were so unnerved by what they saw that they literally had to provide psychological counseling on site to anyone who viewed the material. The livestream regarding the 13-year-old boy is still being investigated, and video evidence is still being reviewed. It's impossible to say exactly how many other people took their lives as a result of 764, but everything I've seen suggests that that number might be pretty high. Yuki, who was mentioned earlier, was allegedly connected to 2 additional suicides. This man was recently sentenced to 6 years in prison after encouraging people to commit, possessing CP, and planning to murder another homeless man. Countless other examples have probably gone undocumented. As alluded to before, this was the endgame for 764. Members would progress through the levels until eventually they'd get pushed to either take their own life, or they did something extreme enough to earn status. Most of them are either still inside the comm, dead, or in prison. Regardless of what path a new member ends up taking though, their journey invariably leads them to some form of nihilistic extremism.
I had no other option but to give them what they wanted, to quit or tap out. So I thought. I was rescued and I was taught how to fight. Now I will never stop fighting for myself and for others, because I am a survivor and you can be too.
Evolving 764. The network still exists today, and it continues to change as time goes on. It is shocking just how long things went on before they faced any major resistance, but in the past couple years, the FBI and other international agencies have begun fighting aggressively. Discord finally started banning more people, but unfortunately, as we saw earlier, it's not difficult for them to just make a new account. Discord reportedly banned 34,000 accounts in 2023 alone, and if we extrapolate a little, we can guess that they've now banned probably over 100,000 accounts directly tied to 764. Discord likes to flex these stats for publicity reasons, but the truth is, their moderation could still definitely be improved. I found this post from just a few months ago where someone said they reported a 764 cut sign, but Discord, quote, decided not to take action on the content you identified. Roblox is also far from bulletproof and has gone through a bunch of scandal regarding predators, but they have started to take action against 764 themed characters and anything with the logo. As you can see here, one of the characters has the logo, and another one literally contains the words, "I love CP." And I have no idea how this was allowed to be created in the first place. With all of that in mind, none of these platforms are really legally responsible for the actions of their users, and therefore they have little incentive to take serious action. It seems like the only real reasons they're trying to do anything is because this type of stuff harms their users and gives them a really bad reputation, especially when people watch videos like this one. Over the past year or two, law enforcement agencies have been putting out a record number of statements that warn parents about the comm and condemn 764 members when they get arrested. These defendants are accused of orchestrating one of the most heinous online child exploitation enterprises we have ever encountered.
Oh my gosh, Pamela Bondi, bro. That bitch don't get out of here, man. This was an amazing video by Crackdown, bro. Amazing, bro. I'm gonna leave a like. I feel so mentally drained right now. I feel like how I feel after Pred catches. This information needs to be put out there and people need to know what these monsters are out here doing.